In this second part of the SpaceInfo podcast episode with Rick Tumlinson, we talk about the vision for humanity in space, private sector versus the government space exploration, the commercial space industry, and much more. We talk about SpaceX, Blue Origin, and other space companies, and how they are shaping the future of space. Then we talk about some experiences of him in the space field, and we leave you with some inspiration at the end. Welcome in this second episode of the SpaceInfo podcast interview with Rick Tumlinson. Hope you enjoyed it and let me know what you think in the comments. Welcome back on the SpaceInfo podcast. Here we talk about space and everything related to it. If you are passionate about space, astronomy, technology, and everything about it, you can join all our social platforms at the SpaceInfo Club or our website at www.spaceinfo.club, where tons of content and a community of experts are there waiting for you. This is the SpaceInfo Club.
Yeah, so in space itself, you'll have two kinds of species, according to what I'm thinking here. One would be, as we were talking about, those who float in zero G, and then we will have those who live on the habitats. They will be the most human-like of all because they will be able to come back and forth to the Earth. Although maybe they have some adjustments to their ears so they don't worry about the thing spinning, right? So when I say about evolve, I'll go back into the principles. First is protect and expand the domain of life. Second is honor and evolve human civilization. And then the third is to explore and experience everything in the universe. That's the fun one. That's where we get to go out and do everything, go everywhere. You might notice each one of these, in a way, plays into your personal life. Treat the environment around you, your home, the world you live in, with great respect, and spread that wherever you can. The second part is to honor everybody around you, but always be getting better at who you are and what you're about. And then the third one is to always be open to new experiences, new knowledge, to be getting out there. The third one also, at the human level, is about us. I have this philosophy, others have said it before, that we are the mechanism by which the universe knows it's alive. If there are no sentient beings, if there are no beings with eyes and minds and souls, wherever they are, there's Sebastiano on the other end of the galaxy, right? The universe is just rocks and energy.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any self-awareness. So if that's the case, it would seem there's almost within that a mandate for us to get out there and start seeing it all and feeling it all and touching it all and tasting it all. And then I put all those together again into the principles of purpose. And I suggest that wouldn't it be cool to grow up in a society that operated within those principles? That was all about that, especially if you're one of the people who's going out there. This gives you something to look at and say, this is why I'm doing this. It's our purpose, capital P. So that's kind of what I'm about now. And I will, like I said, the book will be coming out in April. Maybe we'll talk before then.
True.
But that's what Earthlight's about. And I just think that it's important because, there's a lot of people in different parts of our culture. Excuse me, I'm moving here a little bit, but there are a lot of people in different parts of our culture who are projecting the past onto the future, and, basically it's a bunch of European American white dudes going out to steal more property from the people that live there. And look, the things that happened in the past have been terrible. And I don't, I don't hold those up in high in my heart, that we have done the wrong things, that we have mishandled, but that's the way it's been throughout human history. The first people to get the best technology conquer the people next to them who don't have it. And that's how we've been. Boom, 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 boom. Well, Now we're all here. So now let's get together and see if we can get it right this time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Yeah, we cannot change for sure the past, but the only thing that we can do is learning from it and trying
Mhm.
to change, just not letting history happen by itself. But if there is something that we can do, is probably change and get the control. That's probably the thing that as humans we know to do, how to do it better than anything else. If we try to look for some sort of capability, there is probably any kind of, let's say, sentient or live, yeah, kind of life everywhere that can do it better. But the only thing that we can do better than anything and anyone else is getting control on the things. And so, yeah, probably we should, let's say, exploit this capability that we have to model the future. And something that I really like about what you were saying is this sense of purpose, which is so strongly connected to the to the soul of people. And yeah,
Mhm.
and something that I'm really curious to talk with you is would all this be possible in your life without this determination? And also, yeah, we were talking about you started working and then you also started your commitment in politics. So has this helped to your journey?
Yeah, I basically I have done throughout what I've been doing what I felt was necessary and that I was capable of doing. Well, a lot of
Mhm.
times I wasn't capable of it, but I got started anyway. Um, when I started the venture capital company, I knew very little about venture capital other than I had been in companies where we had tried to raise some, right? And so I brought in some people who knew what they were doing and we went out and did it. By the way, that's important for anybody who wants to start a company, you know. My friend used to say, always bring in someone that has the other half of the brain that you don't have, right? And don't be so conceited that you think you know it all. Um, and so it everything I have done on these different projects um, has been an adventure and a risk, but also enabled by great people. Dr. O'Neill letting me come and work for him. My friend who Walt Anderson, who put up the money to do the Mir project. Um, my friend actually who's from Ukraine, who gave me the first money to start the investment company. So that's always been a collaborative effort. It's, you know, life is an adventure, and unless you're adventuring, you're not living life.
Mhm.
You're not living life if you're sitting on the couch flipping your remote, right? Or if you're just doing video game controlling. That's not
Yeah.
real. That's escape. And by the way, I sit on the couch and I watch a lot of science fiction sometimes, you know, just to decompress and all of that. I'm not one of these people who's like, I don't watch TV or watch the. No, I do. I do. I have to shut my brain down and do that. Um, but at the same time, we owe it both, I think, to past generations and to those that come that we engage in new ways, and we can do that in space. Um, I am concerned. I go back to this, but I am concerned that again, people are looking at this and they're like, "Oh, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, they're billionaires, and they're just going to go out and conquer space for themselves." Whatever you want to say about those guys, and look, I am personally not happy with my friend Elon, what he's doing now. I'm very unhappy about it politically. I actually called him out on Twitter before it changed the name. And I said,
Uh,
Elon, I said, Elon, you've got one job. 1,000 years from now, nobody's going to care about this other stuff. They're going to care about whether you got us off the planet. And he responded to me and he said, well, Rick, everything's going bad and we need to save civilization. And I said, Elon, everybody always thinks civilization is going bad. Go look at the Romans, go look at every
yeah.
historian. It's always going to fall apart. You have one job, raise us off this planet. And I know, again, no matter what else you may think of Elon's politics, for example, I know that in his heart and soul, he wants to do the right thing for humanity. I know Jeff, and I know that Jeff Bezos wants to do the right thing for humanity. In fact, with Jeff, he was a student in high school when Dr. O'Neill's book came out, and he had a book club. Remember, he had a bookstore online. He had a book club, and The High Frontier was one of the featured books. And when he was graduating from his high school, he was the valedictorian, the person that gives the speech for the students. And he basically said, in that and other things he said around the time, that he was going to make money and then he was going to open the High Frontier. So it's been with him his entire life. Now, I may not agree with his labor practices at Amazon. I may not agree with the other things he does. I may not agree with what Elon does politically, these things. But I do know that in their heart and soul, they're trying to do this grand and important thing. Whatever else you want to say about them, this is a good one. And so the fact that they are taking their own money, the money they have made in their companies, and some people might say they made it on the backs of others, but let's be really clear. There are a lot of billionaires on the planet who have made money on the backs of other people. In fact, that's the capitalist system, right? And look at what they're doing with their money. You know, I mean, great. Bill Gates is trying to help people, and there a lot of people are trying to help people. But there are other people buying great big yachts and
Yeah.
and just that, you know, and they're worried about being famous and all of this. Whereas you have these guys, yes, maybe they're doing that too, but they're trying to help us get off the planet and expand. Because our governments are not doing a good job. And so they're stepping in.
Yeah, indeed. I think that you just well hit the very center of the topic I was trying to introduce. Indeed, the fact that politics basically is sort of instrumental to a bigger purpose. And probably also what Elon is doing is, as you say, he perfectly knows, he perfectly recognizes his purpose, but needs support also in that sense. And probably he couldn't do without.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's also what you think. Maybe I'm losing the sight of something, but yeah, I don't know.
No, no, no. I mean, it's puzzling to people on the outside. It's very disappointing, for me, where he's gone lately. And again, I was part of the group that helped allow him to get the contract to fly in space. And I just wish he'd stay out of all of this. Just build rocket ships and electric cars and solar panels and tunnels under the ground with the Boring Company. Great, do that. But don't get involved in this other mess because it's a total mess. And certainly don't pick the wrong team, but I don't want to go too far into that. But look, I think that, again, there's a bigger picture here.
Wait a minute. Well, before going on, I'm very proud to let you know that the SpaceInfo Club is the official media partner of the New Worlds event. Well, also, the Cowboy and Cowgirl Award winners of this year have been announced and will be presented at the event the 1st and the 2nd of November in Houston. I can tell you that the Space Cowgirl Award goes to Vanessa Weiss, the director of the Johnson Space Center. We are very proud to present Vanessa for this award. Her remarkable career at NASA, culminating as the first African-American woman to lead a Space Center, has been defined by tireless efforts to inspire and motivate young people for all backgrounds to pursue a career in STEM. And then the Space Cowboy Award goes to Cam Gaffaran, Houston Space investor. Well, Cam embodies the visionary leadership that drives the future, and he helped elevate Axiom Space into a commercial space leader and also funded Intuitive Machine. Well, I think that you have heard about these two companies, and particularly about Intuitive Machines, which is the first private company to land on the moon. And also, you will see a lot of other events at the New Worlds this year, the 1st and the 2nd of November in Houston, Texas. You can get your tickets on the website by clicking in the link below, which is an affiliation link between the SpaceInfo Club and the New Worlds event. We are very proud to partner with this event. Being a media partner with them is an honor, and we are very happy to share this event with you. Let me know in the comments what you think, and also if you take part of this event so we can meet them. And now back to the video.
And most, by the way, a lot of the companies that are coming up, like Rocket Lab, you know, or even Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos' company, they stay out of these things. SpaceX isn't involved in the politics. The lady who runs SpaceX is a lady named Gwen Shotwell. She's amazing. She's the one who's keeping everybody just like, let's go, let's get the work done, let's build the next one. I've been down there, I've seen them. It's a little south of me. That's why I'm pointing this way, right? I've been down there. I've seen them. There's last time I was there after the first launch, there were 7 starships that I saw in different stages of. Now they've flown 3 more, I think. So there's at least 4. They probably built more. He's going to keep building them and crashing them until he figures it out, one step at a time. Build it, fly it, break it, study it, build it, fly it, break it, study it, build it, fly it, break it, study it. I think there may be one coming up. I don't know when this is going to be on the air, but there's going to be one probably coming up in the next few days, where they're going to try and land, the first stage back at the pad.
Yeah.
So these are incredible things. Jeff's moving a little bit slower. I wish he would move faster, but he had to go through some changes and such. But he's going to have the New Glenn, which is going to be amazing. What I'm really concerned about, in a sense, is that that the governments of the world, or certainly my government, supports them rather than trying to control them
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah. Also, one of the things that may be discussed, but maybe we can avoid going too deep into the topic, is the fact that every time that the administration changes, also the points of that administration, also the priorities will change, and this is for sure detrimental for the whole thing, because you cannot just plan space over 4 or 5 years from now on. You need for sure a wider view, a deeper view in time. And probably also this is a contributing factor to the fact that we are bonded to this kind of support, but we should try to get away from it and do what we want to do without too much being bonded to the government support. Even though probably the government is one of, let's say, of the main fundraiser in the sense of giving money to support this kind of economy, at least nowadays.
Yeah, look, the government is where the money is, the big money, even bigger than the billionaires, in this case, in the US. And it's interesting because, since Kennedy, there hasn't really been a leader with the vision. Like, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it in this amount of time, and let's go. Right. And even then, Kennedy, it's kind of ironic that Kennedy, when he was confronted by the Soviet National Space Program, he created the American National Space Program rather than an approach where it was a combination of explorers and pioneers. That's the combination we need: explorers and pioneers. The explorers is what NASA can do. And by the way, all of the robotic stuff, the going to Mars, the Europa mission, all of these things, right? That kind of exploration work, perfect. Let the government go do that. They do a great job at that. We can argue about the budgets or whatever, but it's really pretty amazing. We've got Voyager still running,
Yeah.
way out there. But then invest in and believe in your people. NASA still, and by NASA, I mean NASA and the people in Congress that control it. So I'm using shorthand, like just call it NASA. They still don't understand that it's their job now to hand this to the people, right? They see private companies as contractors that work for them.
Yeah.
They haven't really understood yet, because the White House and Congress here in the US hasn't told them that the citizens are your customers, right? we have this absurd and insane thing here that people call the SLS, and I call it the Senate launch scam, right? It's the ripoff. It's absurd. It's a dinosaur. When historians look back from 500 years, let's say, if we make it, and they're like, okay, so you have these private citizens who are building 100% reusable ships like the ones that got us out here where we are now having this conversation in
Hopefully.
our history class on Mars. And at the same time, the government was building this thing that was too expensive to operate, could only fly every few years, and they threw it all away. And they were trying to slow these other people down. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's crazy. Instead, like if it was me, right? We all like to say, if it was me, but if it was me and I was in charge of, let's say, the NASA budget here, what I would say is I want NASA to do exploration and development of technologies that are sort of beyond the reach of investors, like the really edge stuff. And then I would take part of their budget and I would say, okay, whoever can create a transportation to and from, no, I'm going to say the top two because I want them to compete with each other when we're done. So the top two companies or groups, they don't have to be companies, that could create a transportation system to and from the moon, supporting 100 people each on the moon, and mining. These are not real numbers, 50 tons of lunar resources each, and we're going to give them $20 billion each. Boom. Oh, and you have, if we were starting right now, you have 5 years to do it. And then just step back. Right. And guess what? They would do it.
Yeah,
They would do it.
indeed, we have all seen what happened the last time. That very kind of similar competition was established by the agency, and with on one side one private space company, and on the other side a kind of bigger, almost let's say public space company. And we have seen the last month what happened with the kind of transportation system to the station.
Yeah. Well, what happened there was, again, my group was the one that helped define what it was supposed to be. And there
Okay,
were articles that I published back in the early 2000s. And we said, because see, NASA kept thinking, well, what we need, and some of the senators and the people in Congress, what we need is another replacement for the shuttle. That we need a replacement for the space shuttle.
so
And
something which is let's say the same thing but in a different time, basically.
exactly. And we were saying, no, what we're trying to do is start an industry and we want multiple winners. But what happened was, this is getting way in the weeds, but what happened was the Boeing company, which is old school and very plugged into NASA and part of it and all of that, and lots of money that goes to Congress people and senators, came in, and SpaceX had this secret sauce that we weren't even thinking about at the time. The secret sauce is the guy running SpaceX wants to go to Mars and put a lot of people out there.
Mm.
So he's going to do the very best he possibly can anyway, right? Even if there was no NASA to buy his stuff, he's going to do the best he can and create low-cost transportation anyway. So that's great. Then you have Boeing roll in with their lobbyists giving money. I mean, I would love to see where all the money goes, right? Look at the paper trail. And what happened was Boeing is charging more to do the same job that SpaceX is. They charged more to develop a vehicle which failed to do the same jobs that SpaceX does. And it's even more absurd. They're charging more per astronaut to fly them to the same place. And I promise you, SpaceX is not flying smaller astronauts, right? It's insane. It's a warped, it's like you have this idea for this sort of competitive industrial environment, and then these guys come in and warp it all out of shape. But we have that sort of one thing that's saving us is you've got this guy Elon and SpaceX. They have a destination and a goal that's bigger than that. So where we are.
Yeah, and it's something that now I'd like to talk about is orbital stations, because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that yeah, maybe some people are thinking about, okay, we have a final destination which is not let's say well, not a final one, but it will be an intermediate one in the future for sure. But for now, we are looking from the surface to the sky, and basically it's a sort of star we are pointing in that sense. But we still need intermediate stations indeed. So what was revolutionary or the edge 30, 40 years ago was a space station, and indeed was done by the government. But if it is something is going good on this side, is probably this kind of thing, because private companies are now going to build private stations and replace the, let's say, the public one. And so maybe this is a positive thing in this kind of trend, and it is going to happen very soon. We know that, yeah, again, SpaceX is going to decommission the whole station by 2030 or something like that.
Yeah. So again, all of these stories there's so much behind them. Like in most people don't know that around, I'm going to get the date wrong, but around 1989, a former astronaut named Joe Allen had a company called, and he was going to fly the Industrial Space Station. And it was human tended. In other words, the astronauts didn't stay there. They would just do certain processes and industrial stuff. And NASA killed it. They squished it like a bug because at the time they were trying to commercialize the shuttle. That's why
Oh,
you'll see
okay.
that old picture with the astronaut that says for sale, right? That goes back to that period, right? Um, and and then when we came along with Mir, they crushed us because they were trying to build their space station, right? And because we were a threat, they couldn't have they couldn't go in front of the public in Russia or the United States and say we're spending billions and billions of dollars to build this thing, and then you've got this little tiny thing next to it called Mir. Maybe it's got a dirt floor. Maybe it's not as fancy, but it's doing the same thing. You can't have that. So they killed us. So finally, we're getting at this point. And again, there are some people who think there should only be one, but I call it an orbital street. It's like an orbital street. I don't want to see one. I want to see lots of buildings, lots
Yeah.
of. I want to see Axiom. I want to see Vast. I want to see Sierra Space. Um, you know, um, I want to see Voyager Nanoracks Station. By the way, those are the four real ones. Those are
Yeah,
the only real
maybe on
ones.
the European side for the listeners, Starlab, maybe.
Starlab, yep. And I want to see all of those, right? Um, and I want to see them populating the orbit with all kinds of things. Now, the challenge there is we have to grow the markets. And we're going to actually have a session at my conference about that. We're having each one of the station teams give us a briefing, and then we're going to talk about how do we grow your market? What can we do that increases the market so that all the stations can happen that have real money, right? By the way, my threshold for those four is that they have raised at least $200 million. It's a little bit of money, but
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, in terms of time, how do you see they be built? And yeah, maybe flying.
I think there's going to be a shakeout. Um, I don't know if we're going to be able to come up with enough markets for all four of them. Um, I think that maybe we get two of them would be good.
Mhm.
Because at least one of them is funded by a billionaire, and so maybe he can keep going. That's Jed McCaleb, who owns Vast. So he's kind of got some independence. Um, I would like to see them starting to fly maybe in the next 3, 4 years. First
Okay,
modules.
sure.
Um, Look, China's going to be expanding their thing, in big secret. I don't know if it's a secret, but my prediction is China, by the way, is going to land on the moon in 28. Write it down. Call me up on 28 if it doesn't happen. December 31st, 2028. Call me and say, Rick, it didn't happen. But I think they are. I really do. I think they're going to go to the moon first. Um, remember, they're working on those same reusable rocket ships that we are. Here's the thing. Once you have cheap, reliable, regular, safe transportation to and from space, off you go. It's what the business people call the hockey puck, the hockey stick. Everything's like this,
Yeah.
and then the
And
product
then,
takes off.
yeah.
That's going to happen, whether it's Chinese, American, ISRO, European, whoever does it. Once you can fly, bring it back, refuel it, turn it around, fly it again at minimal cost, boom, everything changes. That's why it's interesting. You know the word paradigm shift. We're at this multiple paradigm shift in space, right? Most people aren't paying attention right now, which may be a good thing in some cases. But once we hit this moment, then we go. When we have these vehicles, it's the same as the railroad, the steamship, and the airplane all at once.
I was thinking, yeah, exactly about airplanes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
probably,
capital.
yeah, probably one of the few things that we can use as, let's say, as an analogy, but
Mhm.
we can see it happens for every technology. Once you can sort of dominate the technology, you can control it, well, you just bring down that barrier and you go for the next one.
Yes, if you have the goal, if it's achieving your market goal. Now, in the case of space transportation, because you could become a dominant and just say, screw it, I'm going to keep prices high and I'm not going to let anybody go. But as long as you have a goal, and see, that's the beauty of what's happening with SpaceX is the founder of the company has a dream
Yeah.
and he's driven by that dream, right? And that dream is to put 1 million people on Mars, right? That's great. I hope it works out for him. But in the meantime, I'm more interested in the vehicle than I am whether he's got 1 million or whatever on Mars. There's a whole lot of questions about that. But in the meantime, just get us the vehicle and we'll do the rest. Let's get the people out there. Let's give them access. And again, that's the thing that's happening now. You and I, even me, in our lifetime, may be able to afford to buy a ticket to go. And your listeners. And I'm not blowing smoke. It's really happening. That's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I think that will, well, a lot of people talk about it. This is the new era of something. This is a sort of revolution, things like that. But this will be the real revolution of our century, probably even more. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an exciting time to be alive. It's scary, but we have to make it through this because on the other side of this, a friend of mine once said, um, or said recently, he said, "This is the storm before the calm." You know, so I think the bright stuff is coming, but we have to support what's happening. We have to be smart. We have to do our research. We have to know what we're talking about, um, and then let's just go.
Yeah. Now, before closing, I'm very curious to talk about the book coming out April next year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, the
So,
book is basically what I've been talking about, except without the politics and technology. I'm just talking mainly in the book about the spirit of it, the principles of purpose. I do talk about um, that what I call permission to dream idea, and I do a little bit of history in the book where I talk about how the most ancient of humans, the
okay.
ones living in the fields in Africa, right, and their universe was everything within the firelight that they could see, and then the sky, right, with the stars. And so that's what they knew. And everything beyond the shadows was deadly and dangerous and scary. And people who went out there at night often didn't come back, right? And so they populated them with, demons and whatever would be out there. And then the heavens were amazing, but they didn't know what they were. And in their minds, they were heavens. And in the heavens, the only way you could go to the heavens, whether it was Valhalla or heaven or whatever it is.
Mhm.
The only way you could get there was to die. So they weren't trying to go to space because you couldn't. That was a stupid thing to think about. Because that's where the gods and the spirits and the angels live, right? So then we get a little smarter as we move into Copernicus. And Copernicus basically says, look, there are objects out there and they're real objects and things like that. And, and we're not rotating, we're rotating around the sun. And then it's like, wow, and it's funny because if you think about it, like somebody was like trying to be cool at a party in Rome, let's say, back in like 1400, right? And they're at the party and they're like explaining the celestial spheres and how God has placed all the planets and the sun to rotate around the earth and explaining it in great detail. And everybody's like, that dude is cool. That guy, he's got it all figured out, right? Then you go after Copernicus, and that same person's an idiot, right?
Yeah.
Because everything's changed. And so, but then it was like, okay, well, they're planets and stuff, but there was really no talk of us going out there. We were just kind of aware of them. You start to get a few little stories and ideas, very rarely of like, let's go. And then we start getting into the 1800s, and then some of the more of the ideas. And then we get to Goddard and Tsiolkovsky and von Braun and these people, and they're flying rockets. And it's like, wow, we could fly rockets and go there. Remember, as long as it was heaven, you couldn't even dream about going. You had no permission to dream
Yeah.
of going into the universe, right? But then we have rocket ships and not rocket ships, but rockets and launch vehicles, and people could go. And it's like, wow, somebody can go. And then it became about the governments going. And that was the Apollo program and the Soyuz program. And so then it was just government employees. So you could have permission to dream about going, but you had to become a government employee or an astronaut. And then it gets to the point of just recently, which now, if you have a lot of money, you can have permission to dream about going. That's about to change now. And we can give ourselves permission to dream that you and I and your listeners will have permission to dream that they can go. And everything changes. And that's the first part of the book. And then the second part of the book gets into the principles of why we go and what's important and how we go.
Wow.
It's just a matter of I'll end very quickly a very quick story. The opening of the book, I talk about when my mother passed away, and what happened with her. She had an accident and we lost her. And I had been in the field already for 20 years or so at that point, doing the regular thing, startups and organizations and politics, And I was kind of broken at that point. We had buried her that day. I was out in a field in a pasture in my parents' house on the night, and I walked outside to get away from. I just had to get away from everything that was happening. And I walk outside, and there's a beautiful half moon and crescent moon, and then there were horses and the grass and the crickets and the little sounds, and it was beautiful, right? And I just sat there, and because those are the kind of moments when you're open, you're kind of your shell is broken, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking up and I'm like, "Ah, what am I doing? And I'm just looking at the stars, and in that moment, I kind of just let myself fall up, and I urge your listeners to do that sometime at night. Just go fall up and let yourself feel that. Let yourself feel what that is. And I just felt in that moment two things. I felt the mother behind down here. I felt my mother, but I felt the mother world and like the love for this planet that was just overwhelming. And then I kind of felt like it was almost like a voice, like a calling in me that said, are you coming? Are you coming? And I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm coming. We're coming. Let's go. And that changed my life. Right. And so that eventually led for me to write the book. But it was a matter of getting in touch with who we are, who I am, what we're about, what we're for, what's possible, and just imagine your children, the children of your children, living in a society that has that as its goal, not how many cars you have or big your house you is or how much land you've conquered or this or that or the other, but where you're going, how many things you've planted in places that have no life. What have you done to explore and expand the realm of science and to help grow the field of our curiosity? That's the kind of future I want to create. That's a future worth living into. So anyway, that's it.
Yeah, I think that this is the best way to let our listener, yeah, conclude on this episode. I don't have the real
Yeah.
courage to say, okay, for today that's enough, because I really love to listen to these topics. So the only thing I can say is thank you, and
Thank you.
I hope we will be able to talk again. I hope soon. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was really interesting, and not only, let's say, from the space point of view, but also from the very personal point of view. I know that's very involving, and I'm really grateful to have talked to you today. So thanks again.
And thank you for what you're doing, reaching out to the generations. It's so important, so important. So thank you. Ciao. And, do you say arrivederci?